Okay, this is number 1 on the second page of the homework 12 parametric functions. So the first step is you got to find the dy over dx, the derivative. But there's 2 different values and they both involve t. So we're going to find it in terms of t, which means we just add the dt, which seems a little confusing, but really you're just finding the derivative of the y and then dividing it times the derivative of the x. And then you go ahead and find those values. You get 2t plus 6 divided by 2t using the power rule. And this is dy dt over dy or dx dt equals. And then the second step, or the homework asks for the second derivative, and that's where it gets more confusing because you need to find first the derivative of the first derivative, and then you have to divide it by the original derivative of x. I honestly do not know why. I said it's because it's still parametric, you still have to involve 2 functions and divide by d of x. So I guess that's why, is because at this point this is just derivative of like y, and then you still got to divide by dx, which is still just the same thing. So that was confusing, I don't know what I said. But I do know the quotient rule, low times the derivative of high minus high times the derivative of low divided by low squared. And these values, you can just do that multiplication. 4t minus 4t minus 12 divided by 4t squared. I guess that should have been parentheses. And then you'll notice 4t minus 4t, those just cancel out. So then your first value will be negative, I don't know what that was, negative 12 over 4t squared. And then you can take out the 4, you get negative 3 over t squared. So once you have this first derivative, negative 3 over t squared, then you have to divide it by the derivative of x, which is just 2t. And in dividing fractions, you got to use your keep, change, flip. So you get negative 3 t squared times, and this is really over 1. So then times 1, flip it, 2t equals negative 3 times 2t cubed. And that is equal to d2y over dx2. All right, this is number 3 on that same page. So the first step is to find, I'm trying to avoid the glare. The first step is to find dy dt over dx dt, which is the derivative of y divided by the derivative of x. So this is simple. I'm going to take this just off rip. 6t plus 2 using the power rule. And then divided by the derivative of root t, which I know to be equal to t to the 1/2. And you can power rule that. So you get 1/2 to the negative 1/2, which this is the same as a 1 over root t times 2, because 1 over 2 root t. So you're going to divide this whole mess by 1 over 2 root t. That's a 2. By 1 over 2 root t. And then I can look at this and say you're dividing it by 1/2, which dividing anything by 1/2 is the same as multiplying it by 2. So I'm going to do that first because that seems easy. 12t plus 4 divided by 1 over root t. And then from this point, you keep, change, flip to get 12t plus 4 over 1 times root t over 1. So your first derivative will be 12t, I want you to keep that separate, 12t root t times 12t plus 4. So that is your first derivative. So now I have to find the second derivative of this equation and then divide it by derivative of x to anchor it down, make it the parametric. So you take root t, well, to do this, you're going to use the product rule. So you do 1, which is the root t, times the derivative of this, prime 2, so times 12, plus 2 times the derivative of root t. So 12t plus 4 times, and then we found the derivative of root t to be 1 over 2 root t. There should still be a t. Okay. So now you have this, and then you have to divide it by the derivative of x, which is equal to the derivative of root t, which is equal to 1 over 2 root t. So now I'm going to start combining these, distributing out. So you get 12 root t plus 12t over 2 root t plus 4 over 2 root t. You could keep these together, so you just have 1 on the bottom. I chose not to. It does not matter. And then all of that divided by 1 over 2 root t. So from here, I'm first going to simplify. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I'm going to simplify that one down to a 6t over root t. Same thing, 4 divided by 2 is just 2. So 2 over root t. And then I'm seeing a lot of root t's. So I'm going to multiply times the arbitrary 1 of root t over root t. And what this will do is your root t times 12 root t is equal to just 12t, because root t squared is t, simply enough. And then this root t cancels with this root t, and so you get plus 6t. Same thing cancels with this, plus 2, and then divided by, which you can look at this as multiply the 1 times the root t, so then you get root t over 2 root t. Really, these cancel. So this whole bottom is really just a 1/2. And now I'm going to combine my similar coefficients. I have just t, so I'm going to add those. 18t plus 2 divided by 1/2. And then anything divided by 1/2 is the same as multiplying it by 2. So I'm going to do that. And your final answer will be 36t plus 4. And that is d2y over dx2.